Welcome back, viewers. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Now, just before the break, we were talking about the grading system, and Mr. Zulumia was, well, he's touched upon A to C grade.
Yes.
I just wanted to elaborate on that. Can you explain to us, the A to C grades you mentioned and the new system, the new way of marking? Can you just give us a brief?
So the education system went through reform about 3 years ago, and the actual grading changed from A to C or A to G to 9 to 1. So that it's a number-based system. But the number-based system is just a changeover from numbers to letters.
Why? I don't understand about
so
it.
the other way around, sorry. So that isn't the be-all and the end-all. What's changed? So, for example, in terms of the numbers, the straightforward bit is a grade A is a 7. A grade A star is an 8.
Okay.
All right. A grade 5 is a B, C grade, and a grade 4 is a C. So that's the first subtle changes. But the main change has been the syllabus itself. The syllabus itself has undergone a lot of changes in terms of the reason for that is to make it updated in the rest of the world, basically. So a lot of the AS level questions, which was the bridge between GCSE and A level, has now kind of filtered to the GCSEs. So the GCSEs have become a little bit harder in that sense.
Okay.
So that's sort of the main changes. The grading is just a number system. It's just one with the other, basically. So when I originally mentioned A to C, I should have said 9 to 1. So because everybody understands A to C, they understand the percentages. So when we write our results out, for example, we put the old system and the new system together, so parents could understand that better.
Yeah.
So that's how we do
I,
it.
for one, need understanding every time I see, what's that number? I don't understand why they did that, but they've done it.
But the
now,
main difference is that they made it harder. That's the easiest
coming
way
to that, actually, I mean, as a tuition centre, obviously this is where you come in. GCSE results have been astounding.
Yes.
The children are doing really good, and is this one of the reasons why they're making it more difficult? I presume it is, isn't it? Because they want to be able to make it tougher so they get even better students out of it. Is that?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's to do with the world that we live in. Don't forget, we live in a global village now. There's a lot of competition from outside the UK. As far as India, China, they're all developing at a fast rate, and we need to keep pace, and our education system has to develop and get better as a result. So that is one of the reasons why it's developed.
That's many more reasons why
you
need to send your children to tuition, because the syllabus has changed, it's getting more difficult. There's a lot of pressure on our children. So just to ease that, I think a bit more support from the family and extra tuitions and all that makes a big difference to that child, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously, the schools are more and more underfunded now. Schools are struggling to cope with the extra number of students. The birth rates have gone up. Secondary schools are unable to cope with the extra number of kids. Because of the funding, there's been a lot of cuts. There's been schools where Friday afternoons are gone. There's been schools where there's no support staff in classroom anymore. So I'm not saying general things, because each school's got its own way of dealing with the financial situation they're in. But there has been, and a lot of parents will agree, in the sense that a lot of schools are losing funding. So as a result, they have to make cutbacks one way or another. So that is directly affecting the children themselves. And this is where we come in to support those children. Now, as a parent, you can either support yourself if you're willing to do that and you're able to do that, or you can do extracurricular activities through tuition centres or one-to-one, or you can just leave it to the devices and hope for the best. But that's an individual parental choice.
Okay. Does this also answer my question about what is the current education situation in UK? Can you tell me what level we are at the moment with the current education system?
Well, in terms of, as I said before, the funding is a bit slow, and without sounding too political about it, because there's no politics involved in education as far as I'm concerned, but there has been a lot of cuts, and these cuts have manifested itself in less resources. You know, there's been so many stories where schools are fundraising for pencils, sharpeners, paper. There's been primary schools have lost support staff. So
that draws a picture how much difficulty there are in terms of teaching children's better.
Well, if you think about it, a teacher has responsibility for at least 30 children. They then have behavior issues which you have to deal with, all right, on a daily basis. That then has an effect on the other kids. If one child has a behavior issue, it affects other children. So they're having to deal with that. They're having to deal with more paperwork. There's a lot of resources that they have to put on. The schools are now become academies now. There is a lot of school interaction between one school and another school because they're part of a group. So a lot of good teachers are going elsewhere to teach other teachers to be better teachers. Those kind of things are affecting schools in one way or another.
Yeah, so financially, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on schools. So as Suhail said, they're turning into academies. So there's private partners coming into
the question actually.
Yeah, there's private partners coming in to support state education, and there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah, I mean, academy. If there's private investors coming in, you know, aren't they going to look at it as a business or?
No, it's not like that. I mean, academies are mainly, they own. Before it used to be local authority schools, where local authority own the school. Academies, it could be an umbrella organization that comes to support the school to get better. If they're not doing so well, according to some of these statistics that I mentioned earlier, then they may be forced to become academies, where another umbrella organization comes in to support the school, to make the management better, to make the education better, the curriculum better, those kind of things. So it's not necessarily a private enterprise that comes in to profit from it in any way. It's supporting the school to become better. Before, the local authority had the resources to be able to do that, but over the years, local authorities, education departments have diminished, so they don't have the resources to be able to support such large schools. Most secondary schools are 1,000 plus. Most primary schools are 500 plus kids. So these are quite large institutions now, and some are even bigger than that. So as an institution grows, then the ability to see what's going on in school becomes harder, and so the management structure has to be developed as a result of it becoming large. So there are organizations, big organizations, that come in to support schools, and they become part of that umbrella. So you'll hear certain names, I won't mention any particular names, but certain names that are looking after those schools, part of this group or part of this organization is this school now. Those kind of ways, basically.
Okay. As an organization, your organization, in what way do you support students doing Key Stage 2 SATs, 11 plus GCSE, 11 plus GCSE BTEC and A-levels? So you go through all those levels, don't you?
Yeah, so we cater for children from year 3 to year 13, year 12 and 13 being A-level. Yeah, so we support all the key areas of education. So the SATs at Key Stage 2, we support that in year 6, where we develop the kids so they perform well on those SATs, because they're a key indicator for secondary schools where to place that child, whether to put them at the top group, middle group or the bottom group. They decide that partly on those results. And when the child moves from a primary to secondary, all the data goes from that primary, including the SAT results. Because the last thing a secondary school want to do is do a test before they enter the school.
That's right.
Because it's a joyous situation, a joyous occasion to go from primary to secondary. They don't want to spoil by giving them a test. So they use those results to look at those. Some schools are moving away from it, obviously, as well, but vast majority of schools are staying on the stats. So that's one indicator. GCSEs are key indicators because GCSE grades are very, very important to go into further education, which is A levels. So in order to get into an A level, you typically need a B grade to do that. To do the A level. So if you want to do English, for example, you need a B, at least a B grade to be able to go into A level. And the difference between a GCSE and an A level is huge, literally. A level, you're mostly self-learning. 50% of your time is self-learning. Whereas GCSE, you're kind of spoon-fed by your teachers and your tutors and your parents. Whereas A level, you're 50% of the time you're on your own. So there's a big jump, and there's a massive jump in terms of the application of knowledge. There's a massive jump from GCSE to A level. So we support GCSE as well as A level, not just the curriculum, but also the moral and also the navigation of subjects as well. Kids do make mistakes in choosing wrong subjects. So you might have a child who got a 7, which is an A at mathematics, and they just about made a 7, but they don't necessarily like mathematics. But mathematics is a good subject to do at A level. And they choose A level, and they realize, hang on a bit, that's a big jump from GCSE to A level, and they can't cope with it. Yeah. So giving those sort of advice so they choose the right subjects that they can cope with as well and enjoy learning from. That's very, very important.
Yeah. Okay, we have come to the end part of the show, and now there is a few more questions that I wanted to ask you. As your organization, how are you maintaining the safeguarding and the health and safety within your institution?
So in terms of safeguarding, one of us is trained safeguarding lead. That's first thing. We train our staff on safeguarding issues on a regular basis, so they can see what issues come up, just like in a school, same way. We also maintain a first aid record, so if there's a trip, fall or whatever, it's recorded. We also make checks inside the building for fire regulations, to check all the smoke detectors are working. Things are simple things that might affect the child, or the fire extinguisher not working.
The same procedure of the school, because in this country, safeguarding the health and safety and the well-being of the children are very important. So obviously you've taken that in consideration, and that again is a very important part for people to send their children. They need to know that's there. I thank you very much for being here tonight. My last question, and it has to be very brief because we are at the end, of advice to parents from each one of you.
Always be aware of what your kids are doing. Their time's short, especially if they're doing their GCSEs. Look at what they're spending their time on. Advise them to study, to revise. Look for specialists like tuition centres, like Alethea Academy Group, if you live in Birmingham, and motivate them. Don't always put them down, motivate them. Kids work when they're motivated.
Thank you very much. Do you have to say quickly?
Yeah, always be on the side of your children. Try and help them develop better. It's not always about education. It's about the whole aspect of a parent or of a student's life. So always support them on things they like doing as well. That's very, very important. A lot of parents force their children into certain areas where they don't actually particularly like those particular areas. So, we are Asians, so we have this mentality of doctors and dentists and accountants, but that might not necessarily be your child's choice. So please do respect their choice as well and direct them in the right way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here today as our guest. Viewers, that's the end of today. Now, really, I found it quite informative, and it is important, I think, for the future of our children. It's important that we're right beside them, giving them all the support and giving them the choices as well. And I actually said in other shows as well, it's really important that we don't force them into going into a career that we prefer. It's rather what they enjoy and they prefer, because they can excel and do much better in that way. Now, viewers, that's it for today. With all this going on around the world, with the coronavirus and everything, stay safe, stay happy. And remember, I want to thank everybody at NTV behind the scenes. They're working really hard, especially our business coordinator for Business Today, Farsu Ahmed Chaudhry, who's brought two beautiful guests again today. And also the director, Babu Bhai, who's putting everything together for us here all over UK and Europe. Now, remember, tomorrow's business is business today.